Caught my wife sleeping with our daughter's boyfriend in our vacation home basement. Now we're divorcing, and daughter wants nothing to do with her mom. My wife and I had been married for 25 years before we got divorced. We had our struggles, but we always managed to work through everything and come out stronger. Neither of us wanted children when we got together. We were very career focused and we wanted to ensure that we could live happy lives with a moderate amount of wealth. About 5 years into our marriage, my wife had a change of heart. After careful consideration, we decided that we would try to have a child. It turned out to be the best decision of our lives. We had a baby girl. For the sake of this, let's call her Emily. She has been the light of our lives ever since she was born. Admittedly, we might have spoiled her quite a bit. She was an only child and we wanted to make sure she had everything she wanted. That being said, she still had responsibilities that she had to take care of before she got things. When Emily moved away for college, it was one of the hardest days of our lives. Everything we had been doing for the past 18 years was dedicated to our daughter and she was gone. We knew that it was just a step forward for her and that it wasn't the end of our relationship, but still, it was a bit of a struggle. After her first year in college, we had gotten used to her absence. We still missed her and we valued the time we had when she would come home for breaks, but it was almost like we had the life we originally envisioned when we got married. We were traveling and going and doing things that we couldn't have done with a child. During Emily's sophomore year of college, she ended up studying abroad for a semester. She studied in Italy where she met her boyfriend, let's call him Joey. She had many boyfriends growing up, but none were quite like Joey. She adored him. The way she talked about him made it seem like she knew he was the one for her. My wife and I were both excited to meet him because he seemed to be an all-around great guy. Because he lived in Italy, getting together for dinner was a little difficult. But the summer after her sophomore year, we invited him along to our lake house for our vacation. We had bought the lake house 5 years prior and had gone every summer since then. Joey was still a student, so we paid for his plane ticket to come and see us because we just really wanted to meet him. My wife and I instantly liked him. He was charming and handsome with a good head on his shoulders. He was studying to be a surgeon and was apparently at the top of his class. At the end of dinner, I was practically begging my daughter to marry him. Apparently, my wife also really liked him. Just in a very different way than I did. I noticed during dinner that she would blush whenever he complimented her. At first, I thought it was kind of funny. He was a cute younger guy who was telling my wife that she looked good for her age and my wife was falling for his charm. Throughout the rest of the week, the two of them developed an interesting relationship. It was very flirty. It made me uncomfortable, but I didn't want to draw too much attention to it for my daughter's sake. I mentioned it to my wife and she told me that my concerns were nonsense. He was just Italian, and Italian men were like that. Maybe I was being naive, but I believed her. It was the 4th day of our vacation when I ended up coming down with quite a bad migraine. I would get them from time to time over the years, and whenever I felt one coming on, the best thing for me to do was just to sleep. All the time in the sun was really not helping keep it away, so I took off early from an outing to go home. They don't usually take too long to clear up as long as I can get some decent rest. I drew back the curtains in my room and put a pillow over my head after popping a few Excedrin and I fell asleep instantly. I woke up hours later, completely unaware of what time it even was. Thankfully, my migraine was gone. Even though my migraine was gone, I was starving. I looked at the clock and saw that it was a little after midnight, so I tiptoed through the house to make a sandwich in the kitchen. My wife wasn't in bed when I left, though I figured she might have just passed out in a guest room or on the couch to avoid waking me. I wasn't too concerned with that. I walked by my daughter's room and saw that she was in bed asleep. Her boyfriend wasn't there with her and again didn't think much of it. I got to the kitchen and started trying to open the cabinets and fridge as quietly as possible to avoid waking up my daughter. Then I heard the giggling. I froze to get a better idea of what I was hearing. From the porch outside, I could hear Joey saying something in Italian and my wife giggling at it. At first, I thought it was just the harmless banter she had told me so much about. Then I heard a little bit of moaning. Right away, I walked over to the window and peeked through it. My wife was straddling Joey and he was kissing her neck. She had been wearing one of those long dresses and it was raised up above her hips just enough for me to see that they were indeed having sex. My wife was having sex with my daughter's boyfriend on the front porch of our lake house while my daughter and I were both upstairs asleep. I was completely frozen in place as I tried to figure out what to do. My wife was cheating on me. With my daughter's boyfriend. I was at a complete loss for words. They continued what they were doing and all I could think to do was pull out my phone and take a video of it for evidence against them. They were talking to each other while they were having sex and mentioning how they wanted to go inside to the basement again. That made me think that maybe it wasn't the first time they were together. I just went back upstairs and tried to think about what to do. If it wasn't the first time they were together, it couldn't have been some drunk mistake. Even then, it's unacceptable, but maybe it would be easier to digest if I knew they weren't in their right minds. To do it twice was extremely intentional. As I was lying in bed, I heard them make their way into the basement. There was a little bit of ruckus as they walked through the darkness and made their way to the door. It almost sounded like an intruder. Which is when I had the bright idea to catch them in the act. After hearing them, I jumped out of bed and grabbed the baseball bat that I had behind my door. I went into my daughter's room and quickly woke her up, telling her that I heard something in the basement. I told my daughter to stay where she was, but knowing her that wasn't going to happen. I tiptoed down the stairs pretending like I thought I was going to have to use my bat to fight off some criminal. My daughter was just steps behind me peeking out to see what was going on. We made it to the basement and all of the lights were on. We heard Joey and my wife having sex before we saw anything. They were hardly making an effort to be quiet. It was almost like they wanted to be caught. When we saw them, both my daughter and I screamed at them. They were completely naked and there was absolutely no denying what was happening. Right away, I regretted waking up my daughter for that. I should have been the one to catch them and I should have shielded her from what she saw, but I wasn't thinking. They tried to cover themselves and explain what was happening, but it was just senseless rambling. My daughter stormed away and I followed behind her. We both started packing our things to go back home. We didn't care what happened with either Joey or my wife, we just needed to get out of the house. My wife tried to tell me that it was a mistake, but I just told her to leave me alone. I had a lot I needed to figure out and I didn't need her in my ear trying to talk me out of my decision. My daughter and I drove back home in complete silence, both terribly upset about what we saw. When I got home, I started looking into divorce attorneys. My daughter helped me look. After a few hours in the morning, we sat down together and had a conversation. She was mortified by what she saw and she didn't think she was ever going to be able to look at her mother again, much less have a relationship with her. What I didn't know was that my daughter had spoken to my wife just a couple of days before about how much she loved Joey. They had been talking about marriage and she thought it was a possibility for her. They had been considering marriage after she graduated. I was heartbroken for my daughter and completely furious with my wife. Cheating is never okay, but cheating with your own daughter's partner is disgusting. I went through with the divorce. My wife and I both worked and we split all of the bills evenly for everything, so in the divorce everything was evenly divided. To this day, my daughter doesn't talk to her mother. What she did was completely unforgivable and I can't blame her one bit for avoiding her.